We are working on the Conquest again today. I've actually done a decent bit of work since the last time that I had you all here, trying to get this thing back on the road. We have gone through and fixed the wipers because they were frozen stationary from rust on the center wiper for the passenger side. I have done some tune changes to try and get it to idle. I made a verified timing mark for top dead center, made a couple more changes to get it to where it should be firing in the correct position, and I have dropped the fuel cell out of it. Now, the fuel cell had to come out because it was leaking gas, fire hazard, just kind of dangerous in general, so that came out and it's been sealed up. I'm going to be testing it here in a little bit to make sure it doesn't leak fuel anymore, and if all goes well, I'll be firing this thing up and letting you all hear it idle correctly for the first time today. Maybe a couple little throttle blips, a little bit of revving just to see how it acts, and if it's more responsive, we'll get a data log as well so we can get that sent off to the tuner. But for right now, I think I'm going to grab you guys and we'll get you a little closer in on the action and show you some of the stuff we've gone over. Alright, so since the last time I had the camera, I have done a little bit of research, aka I messed with the piece that I cut off for the... It'll focus, I don't know if it'll focus. And this is the piece that I cut off for the wipers. It's horribly burnt. The pieces actually separate on the wiper, which I did not really register. So at this point I am removing it from the cowl so that I can try and separate them because they won't separate in the cowl. I'm going to get them popped apart, clean the barrels, lubricate the barrels with some anti-seize, see if I can get them to spin a little better, put those back. I have sourced some parts for the engine. I'm getting a new valve cover gasket, a rear cam plug, I plugged up an oil port. I have totes over there, this one and that one, you can't really see it. There are two totes of parts over here that have things like power steering lines so I can try and stop the massive oil mess that is down in here. If I can get that taken care of, that'd be nice. I'm going to replace the power steering lines that you can see the hard line. Can't really point it very well, but the hard line there. I'm going to get that replaced to hopefully prevent oil from blowing into the turbo. And then the fuel cell over here, you can see that it was leaking. Gonna get that taken care of. Try and make some changes there and put that back in before I try to fire this up. I'm just trying to button up a handful of things to give that some more time to dry over in the corner there while I just finish some things in the engine bay. I have the wiper motor unbolted. Just need to pop the arm off on the inside and try and fish those through and out. Once I get that done, I will be trying to disassemble them, get them functional as they should be, and then they can go back in. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot to update you on. You might be able to see the timing marks I made down on the crank. There we go, you can see it now. Those are the timing marks I made. The silver one by the actual timing mark on the timing cover there is the indentation I made. The rest of these are just paint and Sharpie. So that will be what I have set up for now to try and make all that work. Once I get the fuel cell in, I can start the car, kind of verify timing again, make sure that it is working exactly as it should. And from there, it is time to start tuning. Alright, with that in mind, we are going to talk a little bit about Tim's ECU. This is what I've done to the car so far. Now, I have Tim from Motocam's ECU on here. Motocam 360 sells a standalone ECU that lets the factory gauges work. It gives an RPM output. You can hook up a coolant temp and an oil pressure sensor to the back of the factory gauges and retain your stock functionality there. Tim's ECU is a good product. There are a couple little things that I'm kind of learning and figuring out that I think could be changed in the programming of the ECU to make it work a little bit better. I don't know a ton about these things, but from what I figured out, these are things that could be changed to make it better. Or you can just make the changes on your own as far as the harness goes, and it should be okay. One of the things I noticed is I use, let me grab one, some little bitty, this is going to be hard to see, but little bitty LED strips with some positive and negative leads. I stuck these in the injector pigtails and I cranked the engine over. And these would flash in the firing order. This engine's firing order is cylinder 1, cylinder 3, cylinder 4, cylinder 2. So 1, 3, 4, 2 is the sequence that this motor fires in. The little lights were flashing in 1, 2, 3, 4. It is not a massive difference, but it does cause the injector timing to be wrong. Cylinder 2 is firing way too early. The fuel is just sitting there in the intake rather than getting sucked into the cylinder because it's firing in the wrong order. These are things you can change in the ECU settings. I don't know how to do it, but from what I've seen online during my research, it is something that can be changed for the ECU. You might need to have the pro version of Tuner Studio. I do not. I use the free one because I don't want to pay for it yet. But it's something that's supposed to be changeable, and it would allow it to run just a little better. So what I did is I just took cylinders 2, 3, and 4. I took cylinders 2 and 3, moved them back one. So now it fires 1, 3, 4, because it was 1, 2, 3. Just move those middle two back and pull cylinder 4s and put it on cylinder 2. So now the injector's firing in the correct order. Improve throttle response a little bit. The other thing I have going is I opted for the fully sequential timing as well as the fueling, and I think it's a setting I have wrong. I'll fully take blame for that. So it's batch firing the coil packs, or the coils, and it's firing 1 and 3 and 2 and 4. That's fine and dandy to have batch fire. Supposedly it helps it get a little bit of a cleaner burn, but it's supposed to be cylinder 1 and cylinder 4 batch firing and then cylinder 2 and 3 batch firing. So I had to again swap my pigtails, and that made it run better. That's what it's allowed me to get as smooth of an idle as I've had so far before I fix this timing mark and the base timing. The things I have left to do will be, again, I have to put the fuel cell in still. I was doing a little bit of a parts list, sourcing some parts, building a plan to get some things, but I'm going to be fixing these wipers, putting the fuel cell in, and then I will put fuel in it. And while it's sitting with fuel to make sure it doesn't leak, I will have the injectors disconnected. I'll pull the spark plugs out, and I will do some testing as far as getting the base timing to be in the correct position. Once I have the base timing in the correct position, then I will be good to hook up the injectors and see if this thing will light off and idle much, much better. Alright, I hope everyone watching finds this interesting because I do, and that's what matters. This is, well, this, if it'll focus. This is the same collar that is right here on this wiper arm, but this one just hasn't been separated yet. There is a little bitty sprung clip. Mine's a little deformed, as you can tell, and a washer that go at the base of the pedestal there. But I'm going to show you how I'm removing these because, as far as I'm aware, you can't get a replacement part for this. What's there is there, and you just have to make it work. Now, that's fine, but it means that I have to take this apart and service it, aka scrub all the rust off, put anti-seize on, and hope that it spins better than it did before, which was nothing. So really anything is an improvement. I'm going to find somewhere to set you guys where you can hopefully see this decently, because I didn't bring my tripod out here. Actually, I'm just going to go get my tripod. Give me a minute. Alright, I have you on a tripod now. Getting a little fancy with this stuff, but I've got the spring clip removed and the washer removed. What I have on here currently is the nut that will hold the wiper arm to this, just so that I don't damage the threads, and we will just give it a couple whacks. You'll notice the tone changed if it comes across well. That's because it was starting to move. That's what we want. Once it bottoms out, I'll spin this out a little bit, strike it again, rinse and repeat, and then it hits a point where I can't keep the nut on there and drive it down any further. I have a 1/4 inch extension here that I'm using to finalize the driving process and push it through. Just like that. It is free. I can clean this surface, the inside of that, lubricate it, and see if it spins better than it did. So what I've come up with, I forgot that I had a whole bunch of Scotch-Brite, but I made a strip of Scotch-Brite and I just ran it through here.
that I can pull back and forth, and that will just let me slowly clean this out. I'm probably gonna put a little degreaser on this, so it'll help eat whatever's in there, and then I will take some to this side of the shaft as well, just to help knock everything off, get it cleaned up. And then I don't know if I'm gonna do anti-seize. I'll probably do anti-seize just to make sure it never tries to lock together again. I'll put some of that in there and then just make sure it spins freely, and then put it back in the car, and we should be good to go and have the wipers operate much better than they did before, which was nothing, and then it was eh. Hopefully now it'll be as good, if not better, than it was originally. And the rain has slowly settled down, so once I'm done with these, hopefully it's stopped enough that I can lay halfway out of the garage and put the fuel cell into place. Because once the fuel cell's in place, it'll be pretty much time to start this thing up and see how it behaves. So I'll bring you along for that if and when the time comes. But for now, I'm gonna just keep on cleaning, and I don't think you guys really want to watch that. So I'll bring you back when it's done. Okay, this is the pedestal that tightens the cowl. I'm hoping you can see down in here. I have cleaned it because it was really nasty, varnished with grease. I took some Scotch-Brite and I fed it through, poked it through with a screwdriver, drug it back and forth, and then I stabbed it through with a screwdriver still holding it, and I twisted it like this to scrub the sides down and remove a lot of the varnish. I still have to do the other one, but I also did it here. I took Scotch-Brite to this and I cleaned it. This is what it looks like now. Alright, I have put these back together. There is a spring washer that goes to the bottom here between this pedestal and the actual arm. So I got that spring washer in, cleaned it into place. I put the pedestal on, the washer, and the C-clip. My C-clip's bent a little, so what I did is I put them into place, and then I used, it's not the right tool, but it did work. I used these to bend them shut. Sometimes the wrong tool used the right way can be the right tool for the job. If you have the right tool though, just go grab it. But I had these together. They spin freely like they should on both ends. So from here, I'm going to just click the other ball socket on the other side of this into the wiper arm assembly and get it installed into the car. And from there, it's time to mess with the fuel cell. Take a small shower, I guess. So this is the assembled wiper arm system. I am going to head and feed it through like I removed it. I just stuck it in from this side. Awkward, but it works well enough. A little finagling. It all just kind of fits in, and I can see it's caught in the far edge over here. All just kind of fits and lets it slide into place. We'll get a couple bolts started here, and then it will be time to go to the other side. I'll also plug this in, but I just want to get these started. I might even tighten them down. Got confidence in it this time, but I'll probably go through and get these tightened down. Another thing, you guys should be able to see it just a little bit, are these hatch struts. Or not hatch, hood struts. I installed these, I did not record it. They are a lifesaver. I got these from Tim at Motocam, and the only thing I had to do is you have to do a measurement here to put the lower ball socket on. That was a little weird, the drilling was a little weird, but they work great. They don't bind, they fit, they hold the hood up. I don't have to have a prop in my way that I'm fighting back and forth. They just fit, and they're an excellent product. I highly recommend these if you do any sort of regular work on your car. If I remember right, they're pretty affordable, and for the price that I paid, I would 100% label them as worth it. So, might be something for you to check out. But from here, I'm going to go ahead and shut the hood. Well, slam the hood, I guess. And I will be working about here. I'm going to just poke the pedestal up, take the nut, and get it started. I don't know what the proper torque spec for these is. I'm going to go with tight, and then I will key on Maybe loosely set a wiper on here so we can get a little bit of example motion. But that should be a good start for us to see how this goes. I have to fish this one in the corner up and into place though. So when you slide these through, they're on a ball joint, so they're going to move a little bit. And there's not a great way to determine the position it needs to be in before you tighten everything to it or try to snug it down. I just reached my pinky in there and used it to kind of tilt and scoot it over on the ball joint so it was where I needed it. And now it pokes through. I can get this on here and tighten it a little bit. Well, the collar just for spinning. There we go. I'm going to grab an all-16ths and then I will tighten this. This is an all-16ths, as my friend in the Air Force calls it. It's just an adjustable wrench because I don't know if I have an open wrench that is just big enough to fit this. Helps me remember which way to turn these things. But I'm just using this to snug it down so I don't have to worry about it moving. And both of these, and then, like I said, I'm going to loosely set a wiper on here. I'll turn the key on and we will see what the motion looks like, because I have wipers on the floor somewhere. There we go. Whoa, they have little white stripes. Alright. My glass needs replaced, but that does not mean that I want to damage it any further. It's got a nice crack right here in it. But I'm going to slide these on and probably angle them up for our display of motion so that they are not going to damage anything. Let me see if I can get this plastic cover off first. Do not want to damage this. If it's anything like an F-body, these little covers are impossible to find. Where is the other nut I had? Just a moment. This. Other one. Alright, so those are hooked up. Let's see if they move. At least like they're supposed to. Well, there we go. Nice. We have functional wipers. It's a happy car. It dances. But this is a great start. That moves way better than it did the other day. That is max speed also. For anybody who's looking at an older car, they don't get any faster. So that will have to do for now. Come on, back to the resting position. There we go. So that is a good start. From here, I'm going to deal with the rainwater, and I'm going to put the fuel cell in. I will not be recording that, so I'll be very sad when it happens. I will bring you back though once I have the fuel cell into place, some fuel in it, and we are ready to try and start this up and see how it behaves with the correct timing. Helps so I don't make a huge mess everywhere with the gas I've got. This is my fuel cell. I don't know who made it. Supposedly the same guy kind of modified these that made the coilovers, but I'm hoping the welds on this are a little better than the coilover welds. I'm gonna mute all that. Keeping all your hardware, very important. Highly recommend it. So I'm just collecting all of this up off the floor so it's within easy reach as I go to put this up and into place. The first thing I'm going to do is try to get the driver's side of the fuel cell up into place so that I can connect the filler neck to the stock one and the vent tube. So it's ready to go there, and then I will push it up into place and try to get a nut or two started so it can't hang too far. Again, the whole reason this came out is because the bulkhead over here on this side was leaking fuel. I thought it leaked all of the fuel out. I was wrong, which is great because it only leaked out maybe 1/4 of a gallon is my guess. I still had about 6 gallons of gas to pull out of it, which means I have 6 gallons of fresh gas to put back in it. And we can see how it behaves from there. Procrastinating a little bit because if I'm being honest, not very excited to do this. It's gonna be very awkward to try and put this up in there and not spill gas all over myself because it has, I don't know how much gas it has in it. Probably 1 inch across the bottom, all the way around. It has just like 1 inch, which isn't a huge amount, but it's enough that it's going to be annoying to deal with. So, let's see how it goes. Alright, might be an awkward cut there. I started moving things, yada yada, whatever. Production learning, growing pains. If you deal with AN fittings like this a lot, go on Amazon and get the ICT billet AN wrenches. I think they're like 50 bucks. And it makes putting these on without galling them or destroying them really, really easy. If you make a lot of fittings, you can order 2 sets, it's 100 bucks, or you can order 1 set and get the vice grip piece. So there's a little piece that goes in your vise, it's 2 flats with some points in it, so your hex can just get gently squished in the vise. Then you can tighten your other half of the fitting onto it. Excellent thing to buy. Okay, so I'm gonna get up underneath here. Camera angle where I need it. You should be able to see my hand in here. This is the ICT billet wrench. It's a -6 wrench, which means it will fit this pretty much perfectly. So I can put it on here. I started by hand, just get it running, and then I snug it down. That's all it takes. Alright, we are going to take a little hiatus from working on the Conquest. This is being shot in the middle of the video where I put the fuel cell in, and I start it here in a minute. I have my great-grandpa's timing light here. This was gifted to me, and as of right now it works if you push and twist these wires in a little bit, which tells me that there's probably a bad connection in here. So I'm going to carefully take this apart. This is a Sears light, very much older than I am, and it works great. It just needs a little bit of love, so I'm going to see if I can give it the attention it needs and get it back to functioning in a good state again. Because if I can, that would be awesome, and it will make it much easier to verify the timing on the Conquest is accurate with a timing light that I don't have to use two-handed. Because right now, it is a two-handed endeavor to get this thing to function as it should. Seems like this one is still hanging up a little bit. It is just 5 screws, yeah, 5 screws that hold the halves of the shell together. Try and get this to carefully separate. It's not really wanting to though. Let's try it now. There we go. So we'll carefully separate that. And when I look in here, this cable is loose. It looks like that should be soldered, and it has come loose. And the other part is good. So all I need to do is get my soldering iron out here and add a little bit of solder to this ground, and it should be good to go. So I don't know how well you can see it. Just zoom in for you. And refocus. Oh, hold on. And refocus. Beautiful. This here is the ground. It is currently loose. So I'm going to grab my soldering iron. I will plug it in, melt that, add a little bit of solder, put it together, and I will imagine this thing works as good as it did when it was brand new. The rest of it looks excellent inside. All of the terminals look great. So I'm going to go grab my soldering iron. I will bring the camera back when I am working on that. Alright, so at the point I got my soldering iron out here, got my solder, I've got flux. This makes your life way easier. Don't breathe this in. Use it outside where you have some good ventilation, or in a room where you have good ventilation, because it's probably not good for you to breathe this in a whole lot. I try and avoid doing that, but you just want to get a little bit on there. I don't like to cut pieces. I'm lazy. And then all I need to do is position this the way that it lays in here, as well as the wire where it goes. So I've got a rough idea. Grab my soldering iron. The tip looks okay. Clean it. A little solder melt. And carefully, try not to put my face in the shot where it'll be easier to see. And there we go. Probably got a little more than it needs, but I'd rather have a little more than not enough. At this point, I would imagine this is going to work excellent, because it has worked wonderfully. Once I get that wire wiggled and it makes a good contact, and the rest of these are making good contact. So I'm going to loosely clean this while it's out. Not that it really needs it, but a little wipe down. Set that into place. Set this half into place. Make sure the wires are just back where they go. This dropped down like so. And the next part will be getting the nuts carefully into the back side of this and started. Let me see how well you can see this. Fairly. I am losing the battery though, so it might hit a point where I have to shut the camera off and let it charge for a little bit while I do a little bit more work. But we'll see how things continue to go. So I'm going to finish this up and then I will bring you back here in a little bit. I'm going to try and end this video out before I lose my camera battery. I showed you the clip of it running. I have some of my phone that'll stitch to the end of this of it running a little better, revving a little, because the camera battery is again about to die. I will get more in depth about Tim's ECU in the next video. I kind of got sidetracked on this one. Did not really stick to the plans of what I was going to get covered, but overall I think Tim's ECU is a great product. I think you just need to make sure you double check a couple things and kind of go over it. You're the one installing it and you have to hook up all your own pigtails. Just double check like your firing order and everything. Make sure that all looks good. If you want to test it the same way I did, that's also acceptable. I did the same thing with my coil packs. I just took a slow-mo video on my phone so I could see them blip in and out and then slow it down and go frame by frame to see which ones were in and out at the same time. So I figured that one out. But overall, I think Tim's product is a great ECU, is a great option for these cars, especially if you want an OEM Plus setup. If I ever go and do something like a 4G64 swap in the future or a different engine, it is an ECU that is scalable enough to work with another engine if I wanted to, which is honestly incredible. I can kind of redo some of the engine harness and make it just fit. That's an absolute win. It'll still have an RPM output. I can still kind of set it up to do some of the same things as my understanding. Use the same gauge cluster as it came with from factory, just have a better power plant. That's a win. It honestly is really easy to install. If you can do some basic wiring like adding pigtails and hook up a relay, you can hook up this ECU and have your car startable with very, very little work, and then you can find somebody like the tuner I have. I will double check before I name drop him that he's okay with it. But the tuner I have is thankfully fairly local. He's in the Orlando area for me, and we were able to meet up. He did a little bit of looking over the car. We made some adjustments. I verified a couple things. He showed me what I need to adjust to get the base timing correct, and then send him some data logs so we can get some progress going. But overall, I'm very happy with how far it's come. I don't know if the fuel cell's leaking yet. I don't smell any fuel. I haven't looked back there because honestly, I'm on a little bit of a high right now with all these winds we've had today. And if I look under there and there's fuel, I'm going to be a little bit let down, but at the end of the day, it happens. As far as the car goes, like I said, we got a lot done. We got the fuel cell back in. It appears to be sealed. The fuel pump is mounted. It's a little noisy, so I'm going to have to see if I can make some isolator bushings or find the ones that came with it and put them in there to help try and kill off some of that noise because it's a little bit much. I might also make some for the gas tank, like some rubber pads. I might 3D print some so that it is isolated a little bit to help keep the noise to itself. We got the wipers working, the engine running better, timing is verified. I fixed my great grandpa's timing light here, which I think is incredible because I've got a few of his tools and I think it's really cool that I get to mess with them. That was sent to me by my uncle who had it, and I've got some of his stamps and things like that that I've used on the Firebird engine, so it's just a little bit neat to be able to bring part of him along for my car journey. And I'll include the clip of that being fixed here, but I think for now, that's going to do it for the Conquest update. Again, my next video, I'm going to charge the camera batteries, and I will do a little bit more in-depth video over how I installed everything for Tim's ECU, how I hooked it up to the gauge cluster. I'll get some pictures, and I'll kind of talk through it, because genuinely, if you have what you need on hand, I think that you can install Tim's ECU in 8 hours. I think it could be an 8-hour day to install that and have your car possibly fired up and running if you count all your teeth correctly and make your timing mark right. I genuinely think you could have it started in about 8 hours. Obviously the tune will need more revision from there to get it finalized, but at least the car will start for a proof of concept and to verify everything is correct. So that'll do it for now, like I said. Otherwise, get out there, learn something, teach something, and stay safe. That's the most important thing.